Deshaun Watson. In 2020, he was a unanimous top 5 quarterback. His electrifying playmaking ability was something few players ever had before. Browns were in desperate need of a quarterback. They had just let go of former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield, and Watson was on the market. Browns pounced at this opportunity, completing one of the biggest trades in NFL history to get Watson in their building. They believed he was the missing piece that would propel them into Super Bowl contention. What followed was something so unbelievable that not even the smartest people in the world could have predicted. Drama, terrible on-field play, misery in the locker room, the complete destruction of a franchise, all because of one man. This is the complete story of the Deshaun Watson experiment and an in-depth analysis on how it was so bad that it is considered the worst trade of all time. Chapter 1, The Lead Up. The year is 2020. Deshaun Watson has just completed the best season of his career, garnering over 5,000 scrimmage yards, 36 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. Despite his phenomenal play, however, the Texans finished a mere 4-12, a steep decline from their 10-6 season the year before. Their defense was allowing nearly 30 points per game, and they had a coaching controversy just 4 weeks into the season. Watson was not happy with this at all, and following the season, he requested a trade out of Houston. He no longer wanted to play for the Texans. In 2021, he got his wish, not playing for the Houston Texans, but that was because he did not play for any team that season. In March of that year, 2021, 22 lawsuits were filed against Deshaun Watson for sexual misconduct, and though Watson denied everything, it didn't matter. Despite reporting to camp, he did not play a single game in the 2021 season, listed out with a non-injury related designation. Throughout the 2021 and 2022 offseason, Watson's future is up in the air, but finally, one NFL team makes a move that will change the entire landscape of the NFL. Chapter 2, The Trade. On March 18th, 2022, the Houston Texans traded Deshaun Watson and a 2024 6th-round pick to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a 2022 1st-round pick, a 2022 4th-round pick, a 2023 1st-round pick, a 2023 3rd-round pick, a 2024 1st-round pick, and a 2024 4th-round pick. At the time, it was considered the 3rd biggest trade in NFL history by Athlon Sports. So let's take a look at all of the players that Houston got with these picks. They spent the 2022 1st-round pick on offensive guard Kenyon Green. Unfortunately, Green hasn't been worth the 1st-round investment. He's dealt with injuries, and when on the field, he has been below average. They spent the 2022 4th-round pick on running back Damian Pierce, who is widely considered one of the better backup running backs in the league. The 2023 1st-round pick was used in the blockbuster trade to acquire Will Anderson Jr. Anderson won Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2023 and is currently one of the premier edge rushers in the league. The 2023 3rd-round pick was used on wide receiver Tank Dell. Though his short career has been plagued by injury, when he's on the field, he has been a very good player. He's currently averaging 55 yards per game for the Texans. The 2024 1st-round pick was used in a trade with the Minnesota Vikings, which saw them sending said pick in exchange for a 2nd and 6th-round pick in that same draft, as well as a 2025 2nd-round pick. Those two 2024 picks were spent on cornerback Kamari Lassiter and linebacker Jamal Hill. Lassiter was a day 1 starter and had a solid rookie season, allowing just a 69.1 passer rating when targeted, had 3 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. Jamal Hill only played on special teams, but was solid. The final pick, a 2024 4th-rounder, was spent on safety Kalen Bullock. Bullock was also a starter for them, allowing just a 45.0 passer rating when targeted. In the end, these are the players that the Texans acquired due to the Deshaun Watson trade. Out of these 7 players, 4 of them have made significant impacts to this team, with 2 of them being some of their best players right now. Looking at this trade now, it's quite clear who won. The Texans aren't a playoff team if this trade never happens. Chapter 3, Watson's Browns career. Let's take a look at Watson's Browns career on the surface. I'll get into more specific stuff later, but if you want to see that now, you can use the timestamps in the description. Watson has played 19 games with the Browns, with a record of 9-10. He's completed 341 out of 557 passes for a completion percentage of 61.2%. He has 3,365 yards for an average of 177.1 yards per game and 6 per attempt. He has 19 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, good for a 1.59 ratio. He's taken 70 sacks for an average of 3.68 per game. On the ground, he has 93 rushing attempts for 465 yards, an average of 5 per carry. He has 3 rushing touchdowns and 2 fumbles lost. Looking at these baseline stats, one might assume Watson was simply a below-average quarterback. Nothing more, nothing less. And assuming that would be justified. These stats aren't bad. Not great, but not bad. However, As mentioned, this is only the surface. We can get much, much deeper, and you'll be shocked at how far down we can go. Chapter 4, Historically Bad. Simple stats don't tell the whole story of Deshaun Watson. We have to look deeper. Let's take a trip back in time to 2016 and 2017. Browns fans remember this well, the Hugh Jackson era. During these two seasons, the Browns went to combine 1-31. It was the worst two-season stretch in NFL history. And yet, Deshaun Watson and the Browns have been even worse. Let's compare this season to that 2016-2017 stretch. During those 32 games, the Browns scored a combined 498 points for an average of 15.6 per game. In 7 games this season, Watson and the Browns scored 109 points for an average of 15.6 points per game. In 2016 and 2017, the Browns had 6,492 passing yards for an average of 202.9 a game. This season, Watson has 1,148 passing yards for an average of 164 per game. This also gives the 2016-17 Browns the lead in yards per attempt, 5.7 to 5.3. In 2016 and 2017, Browns quarterbacks had a 2.6 touchdown percentage. Watson had a 2.3 touchdown percentage. Sack percentage, 8.6% to 12.2%. Big time throw percentage, 3.6% to 3.5%. Pressure to sack percentage, 21.3% to 28%. No matter what way you look at it, Deshaun Watson and the 2024 Browns offense is worse than the 2016-17 Browns offense, which again went 1-31. He's been that bad. But what if I tell you that it gets even worse? What if I told you that I have undeniable proof that Deshaun Watson was so bad that it damn near makes you question what is even humanly possible? Chapter 5, an in-depth statistical analysis. Warning, this chapter gets pretty mathematical, but I promise you that it's worth it and I try my best to explain it in the simplest way that I can. Anyway, on to this analysis. To prove that Deshaun Watson was unfathomably bad, I'm going to use a term called a z-score. A z-score is a statistical value that measures how many standard deviations a data point is from the mean of a distribution or data set. A standard deviation is a statistical measurement that describes how spread out a set of numbers is in relation to the mean. In other words, z-scores help us calculate how far a specific data point is from the mean, or average, of a data set. I'm going to use 2 statistics that I believe are some of the most important for a quarterback: yards per dropback, which is self-explanatory, how many yards a quarterback throws per dropback, and EPA per dropback, or expected points added per dropback. EPA per dropback is a metric that calculates how well a player performed compared to their expectation on a per dropback basis. This can be either a positive value, for example, Jared Goff is a plus 0.25 EPA per dropback, or it can be a negative value. For example, Gardner Minshew has a minus 0.17 EPA per dropback. So how do these statistics and z-scores help prove that Deshaun Watson is unfathomably horrible? Here's how. We'll start with yards per dropback. I'm going to take every quarterback with at least 200 dropbacks this season, that number being 40, calculate their yards per dropback by taking their total passing yards and dividing it by their number of dropbacks, and put that all in a list. Now I'm going to find both the mean and standard deviation of this list. The mean is easy to find. All I have to do is add all the numbers and divide by 40, which gives me a mean of 6.28. That means that this season, quarterbacks with at least 200 dropbacks threw for an average of 6.28 yards per dropback. The standard deviation is a little more complicated to find. I'm going to subtract the mean from each number, then square it, then add all the values, and that equation looks like this. That gives me an answer of 0.5776. However, that's the variance, not the standard deviation. To get the standard deviation, I have to square the variance, which gives me a final standard deviation of 0.76. This means that on average, every quarterback's yards per dropback is spread out by 0.76 units from the mean of 6.28. Now that we have the mean and standard deviation, we can use the z-score formula to calculate Deshaun Watson's z-score. This is the z-score formula, where this represents the mean, this represents the standard deviation, and this represents our specific data point, aka Deshaun Watson's yards per dropback. Watson had 1,148 yards on 270 dropbacks, giving him 4.25 yards per dropback, which yes, is the lowest in the league. Plugging everything into our z-score formula, we get a final z-score of negative 2.67. But what does that mean? We've done all this work to get this z-score, but what does it mean in the context of this situation? Why does it matter that Watson's yards per dropback are 2.67 standard deviations below the average? Well, to answer that question, we need to use a z-score table, specifically a negative z-score table, because our z-score is negative. A negative z-score table allows us to find the percentage or probability of all values occurring below a given z-score. Using the table, we get a value of 0.0038 or 0.38%. But what does that mean? Well, that means that based on this data, the probability that a quarterback would be better than Deshaun Watson in terms of yards per dropback is an astounding 99.62%. That is insane, especially for a $230 million man. And it only gets worse because we can do the same thing with EPA per dropback, which is arguably a more important stat. The mean of all quarterbacks' EPA per dropback this season was negative 0.01, with a standard deviation of 0.14. Watson's EPA per dropback was negative 0.27, the second lowest in the league, only ahead of 5th round rookie Spencer Rattler. Plugging everything into our formula, this gives Watson a z-score of negative 1.86. On the z-score table, this gives us a value of 0.314 or 3.14%, meaning that the probability that a quarterback would be better than Deshaun Watson in terms of EPA per dropback is 96.86%. The second highest paid player in NFL history in terms of guaranteed money has an almost 97% chance to be worse than any other quarterback in the league at arguably the most important stat for a quarterback. The fact that Watson is this bad in not just EPA per dropback, but both of these important categories is absolutely insane. It's unfathomable. It's bizarre. There aren't enough words in the English dictionary to describe how bad Deshaun Watson is. But while I've already used numerous different pieces of statistical analysis to prove just how bad Deshaun Watson really was, stats still only tell one part of the story. How about we dive into the film? Chapter 6, Film Analysis. Now, to me, the worst part about Watson's game that I see in film isn't an interception problem. It isn't an accuracy problem. It's a mental problem. Watson has simply forgotten how to play football from a mental standpoint. The most frustrating plays Watson displays are the plays where he drops back to throw, but just doesn't release the ball, no matter how open the receivers are. And then he just gets sacked. That's why he was sacked the most times per game out of any quarterback this season. Let's take a look at a few examples of this and you'll see what I mean. Here, it's 1st and 10 from the Browns' own 44-yard line. I'll let you watch the play and then I'll break it down. So here's the concept. You see Elijah Moore motion across the field into a comeback, Amari Cooper is going to run a clear out route, and Jerry Jeudy is going to be coming across on what is about a 15 to 16 yard dig. Watson fakes it to Jerome Ford and rolls out left like the play is designed to. Watson is forced back inside by Micah Parsons, but bam. See it? Jerry Jeudy is standing wide open, calling for the ball, and Watson looks right at him. But for whatever reason, Watson doesn't throw it. Instead, he tucks his head down and tries to run forward, but gets sacked by Eric Kendricks. Here's another angle of the play. I understand Watson is on the move, but when a receiver is that wide open, you have to release that ball instead of running right into multiple defenders. Here's another one, also from the Cowboys game. It's 2nd and 10. I'll let you see the play first. Alright, let's look into this one. The Browns are running the same concept on both sides of the field, a speed out by the inside receiver and a dig route by the outside receiver. Here you can see that just a little bit after Watson hits the top of his drop, Amari Cooper comes screaming open. This is a clean pocket by NFL standards, and pretty much every quarterback in the league rips it to Cooper right here, but not Watson. Instead, he runs right into DeMarcus Lawrence and actually fumbles, but Joe Bitonio is able to recover it. However, this is still another example of Watson just not seeing the field properly. This next play from the Giants game isn't as egregious, but it still isn't great. Here's the play. Now, there's really only one route to highlight here, and that's the comeback by Jerry Jeudy. It's obvious that that's where Watson's looking to go with the ball, and the problem here is that Watson just holds onto it too long. He waits for Jeudy to get wide open before releasing it. He does begin to release it, clearly aiming for Jeudy, but by that point, the pressure has gotten in and Watson is stripped. Watson needed to have thrown this ball here, right when Jeudy began his break. The pressure by Brian Burns still isn't quite there yet, and Watson should be able to put this ball at least somewhat near Jeudy, but instead, he holds onto it too long, and bam. This final play I'm going to showcase is so bad that I think a high school quarterback would have made a better decision here. Take a look at this play. Yeah, let's break this one down. Geoff Swaim, the tight end, is going to motion inside, and along with Jerome Ford, that gives the Browns 7 blockers against 5 Commanders pass rushers. Amari Cooper is going to run a slant route before stopping in the middle of the field. Elijah Moore is going to run a drag route underneath, and Jerry Jeudy is going to run a 20-yard dig route. Now, as expected, Deshaun Watson has a very clean pocket, and is not one, but 2 open receivers right here. He can throw it short to Elijah Moore here, or he can throw it deep to Jerry Jeudy right here. Instead, Watson runs directly into Bobby Wagner, like directly into him. If you wanted to move in the pocket, he should have at least moved toward the open space, but really, he should have just beamed this one to Jeudy. But no, he runs right towards Wagner and fumbles. This is high school, no, pee-wee backup stuff right here. Inexcusable for any NFL quarterback, let alone one that cost 3 first-round picks and $230 million. Chapter 7, Conclusion. Well, there you have it. An in-depth statistical analysis and film analysis of Deshaun Watson, the worst QB in the league by far last season, and the focal point of the worst trade in NFL history. Now that he's expected to miss significant time in 2025, and the Browns are sitting at the 2nd overall pick, the best thing for the Browns to do is release Watson, eat the dead cap, and start over. But one thing is for certain, Watson is a terrible football player and a disgusting human being, and I believe that he has already played his last snap in the NFL. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's different from the videos that I usually make, but if you guys like this kind of content, then let me know in the comments below. You can also help by liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.